Welcome to part 2 of Space Invaders. Let's go ahead and get started. So I want to shoot every time I press the mouse. So I'm going to go down here. I'm going to create a function, mouse pressed. Okay, and every time that this mouse is pressed, I want to create a new bullet. Granted, I haven't created my bullet class, but let's pretend for now. I'm going to call this new bullet is equal to new, which is our keyword to say that we're creating a new object. The constructor will be named capital B bullet, and it'll probably need an X and a Y. And if we think about, if we think about the location of where we want the bullet to shoot from, it's going to be the X position of wherever my mouse is, and then the Y position of some point below this nozzle thing for my ship. So that means the X is going to be mouse X, and the Y is going to be the height minus let's see, minus 10. It looks like the sort of top. So let's do less than that, minus 8. Okay. So when I press play, once I do the mouse click, it's going to try and run this function. I'm going to realize, well, no such thing exists. So let's go ahead and create our bullet.js. So keyword class, bullet, open and close curly braces. The first thing that we're going to do is the constructor. And it's going to probably need an X and a Y position. These don't have to be X and Y, by the way. This could be, in this case, it's going to need to be like our position information, but they don't have to be labeled X and Y. They can be whatever you'd like. So pause X, Y, bull X, pause Y. Name these whatever makes sense for you. I guess I'm going to go with pause Y for this position X, position Y. And these are just going to be whatever gets sent here. So every time we create a new bullet, it's going to send mouse X and height minus 8 to this constructor right here. So this is now going to be mouse X. This is going to be height minus 8 when we call that constructor. So this is going to need an X, a Y, and a radius. Radius, we want it to be pretty small. This is going to be our pause Y, and this one is going to be our pause X. Okay, and just like for the other one, it's all well and good to create it, but in order to actually see it as the player, we're going to need to create a draw function. This is just going to be an ellipse I think the fill, I think this can be white, so I'm just going to do 255. Ellipse, this dot x, this dot y, this dot r, this dot r. Shift tab to neaten up our spacing here. So let new bullet is creating our function, and then we actually want to draw that function. What did I call it? Draw bullet. Bullet is not defined in scope, which means we need to add it to our HTML. Bullet. Okay, so I'm clicking and nothing happens, but let's see if maybe it's just currently being drawn behind the behind our little battleship. Okay, so every time I'm clicking, I am very briefly creating my object and then drawing that object, but it's going to disappear the very next time that this draw loop goes through. Frame rate was just to slow it down to kind of demonstrate what was happening. So what we're going to want to do, if we're going to want to create one but then have it exist and be able to interact with it and do collisions, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to that we did for aliens. We're going to create an array. So let's go ahead and initialize bullets is equal to empty square bracket semicolon. So now we're going to introduce a new function . Okay, so we're going to use a function called push to save that bullet as an element of an array. So instead of having like a set number of iterations, like this creates 8 aliens every time it runs, we're going to create an array of, well, 1 bullet on the first click. But then the second click, we're going to want to add a bullet to it. So now there's going to be 2 bullets in the array. And then once they, get off screen or hit something, we're going to want to be able to remove them element by element. So we're going to use called push. We're going to do bullets, which is the name of our array, dot push, and we're going to push onto it new bullet. Okay, so hopefully what that's doing is every time that we click our mouse, we're creating a new bullet and adding it as an element of our array bullets with an S, as in plural. Okay, so now we're going to want to draw each of those bullets. So we're going to do another for loop. For, we're going to use the same I is equal to 0. I is less than, so let's think about how many times do we want to draw the bullet. Well, when I've clicked the mouse 3 times, I want this to be able to loop 3 times to draw each of those bullets. But if I haven't pressed it, then there aren't any bullets to draw, which means this loop should not run. So this number that goes right here, instead of being hard-coded like this 8 is, we're going to use bullets.length. So this is going to pull whatever the length is for the amount of bullets that we've created. So if we've clicked the mouse 3 times, it's going to run 3 times. If we've clicked the mouse 0 times, it's not going to run at all. So we want this to be kind of a dynamic variable. So bullets.length. So our array name .length. We can do this same thing for this 8 right here. We've hard-coded the 8 up here, which is where we're actually creating our array of aliens. So all of these other ones can be aliens dot length, and they really should be. So we want to be able to, if I want to change the amount and location, I want to be able to only have to do that once in this setup. Aliens dot length, bullets dot length. So I want to be able to, if I want there to be more, I want to be able to go up here and change that to 10, change that to 20, adjust the spacing, and I want to be able to do that all in that one area, and then all of this should run automatically regardless of the size of our array length. So that's why we want to use this bullets.length or aliens.length. And then we're going to increase by 1 each time. Open and close our curly brackets. And then this is going to be, what did I call it? Bullets at index I, draw bullet. Yeah. Draw bullet, open, close parentheses, and okay. So each time I'm pressing the mouse, I'm adding a bullet to the array of bullets, which is cool. Of course, we want them to actually move up the screen, which means we're going to need to add some functionality. So in order to do this, I'm going to do very similar to the aliens move. We're going to have a bullets shoot. I don't think it needs any parameters. And for this one, our y value starts at around the height and it's decreasing by some amount. Is equal to this dot y minus 20. You can adjust that later. And we want it to want to call that for each element in our bullets array, for each bullet in our bullets array. So we're going to put it in this for loop. So I don't think we need to have it quite so high up now. Oh. Okay, if you pay attention, you can actually see the bullet in front of our drawn ship. So in order to change that, all we really need to do is change the order in which we draw things. So if we want the ship to be on top of the bullets, then that just means that we put it below drawing the bullets. Okay, so this for loop right here is going to draw each alien, oh my gosh, objects in the array aliens, and then we call the function to move, and then we check for collision with wall. Okay. I'm just commenting things to try and help make it a little bit easier to navigate later on. So this for loop right here draws each alien object in the array aliens, calls the function move, checks for collision with the wall, and then each individual line, this line sets wall to 1 if a collision between wall and aliens occurs. I didn't really finish that sentence, it's not necessary. Draws aliens at index I, moves alien at index I. You can say if any alien has hit wall, they all advance. Which is why we have this as a separate function. Okay. So what's next? We want our alien here to disappear once we've hit it with our bullet. That's going to be the next goal. So removing specific elements within an array is something called splicing. First we need to check for collision. We're checking for collision between two objects. So let's go ahead and do that. So for each bullet that we've created, we're going to want to check whether the position of our bullet is and the position of our alien to see if that distance has gone to some number that means there's a collision. So let's think about this red point right here is the x and y position of our alien. This red point right here is the x and y position of our bullet. So, and the distance is going to be the distance between those two positions. So we want to keep in mind that the position for our objects is kind of in the center. So we need to keep that in mind when we're doing our calculations here. So when there's a collision, what actually happens is the distance between the x and y position for the alien and the x and y position for the bullet is going to be less than or equal to the two radiuses added together. So this distance, right, when they're just barely touching, is exactly equal to the radius for the alien, this line right here, and the radius for the bullet added together. So instead of the collision being with the wall, so where position plus the radius can't be greater than the width of the canvas or greater than the height of the canvas, now we're dealing with a situation where we have to have two different objects colliding with each other, right? Which I think we've done that with the paddles before, but just as a review. So bullets eye dot shoot. So we're going to want to, for each one of these bullets, check each element of the array aliens. So in order to do that, we're actually going to do another for loop. This is nesting our for loops. And usually when we go through each element of an array, we use I, but in this case, we're already using I for something else. So we're going to use J instead for exactly the same method. J has to be less than aliens dot length, and then it's going to increase by 1 each time. So for each bullet and for each alien, we want to check what's the distance between their x and y positions. Thankfully, there is a built-in function for that. So this dist, distance function, is going to take in 2 points, so an x and a y and then an x and a y, and it's going to return the distance of that function. So I'm going to store that in this variable d, which means I need to initialize d. Well, let's not actually put a number to it yet. Distance, so this needs aliens at j, because that's the index that we're using to iterate through each element of our aliens array. Aliens at j x, aliens j, j dot y, and this one needs to be the bullets at I dot x, bullets at I dot y. Okay. So we're using this distance function, sending it the x and y for aliens, x and y for bullets, and it should return a distance. Okay, oops. Let's close that. So now we want to say if that distance is less than the 2 radiuses added together, then we have a collision. So if D is less than less than aliens dot J dot R plus bullets at I dot R. So if that is true, I'm going to print to the console that was a hit, just to make sure that this is working, and then we can do the removing elements separately. I just want to make sure that this part works. So for each bullet and for each element, we're checking the distance. Aliens dot J, bullets at I. If aliens, if D is less than aliens radius plus the bullets radius, then that should be a hit. So you could say less than or equal to. And curly brace. Bullets. This is bullets. I did it again. Cannot read property of R. Does bullet not have R? Bullet has an R. Okay. So we need to make sure that this if statement is within the same for loop where we're testing both aliens at indexes J and bullets at indexes I. My mistake. So now you can see it's logging every time I hit. So now we need to just remove the bullet and remove the alien whenever that is the case. So in order to do that, I'm actually going to add one more variable associated with the aliens object and the bullet object, and I'm going to call that hit. So I'm going to say aliens at J dot hit, which is a variable I haven't created yet. I need to go into the class and create it, but I can go ahead and code it here, no big deal. And I'm going to set it equal to 1. Bullets at I dot hit, that is also going to be equal to 1. So let's go ahead and add that. This dot hit is initialized at 0. This dot hit is initialized at 0. So now we have created a variable that stores whether or not a hit happened. So now that we've done that, we're going to create another loop that's actually going to remove our aliens and bullets from the array. So if we were to do this one right here, So going through each element of the array, and then we want to have if aliens dot at I dot hit is greater than 0, so this will run if this ran and set it to something other than 0. If that is true, then I'm going to say print alien registered damage. Just to show to myself that yes, everything's working fine. It's kind of helpful to debug sometimes. So then I'm going to use this function called splice. So it's going to look like this, aliens.splice, and then we're going to send it the index at which we're doing that we're removing, and then the number of elements that gets removed. So this removes 1 element at index I. Okay. And then we need to end the if statement, and then we have our for loop. Okay. So that was a hit. Alien registered damage, and alien was removed. There's actually something slightly wrong. It appears to be working fine, but let's take a look at our array here. So if this is our row of aliens, and then this has hit of 0, hit of 0, hit of 1, and this one has a hit of 1. Let's say both of these have a hit. So it's going to go through that array starting at index 0. Hey, does this have a hit? No, move on. Hey, does this one have a hit? No, move on. It's going to check this one. Hey, does this one have a hit? Well, yes, it does. So it's going to, let's get all of that. It's going to remove that element. It's just going to disappear somewhere. But then what happens is that these both get kind of shifted down. But our for loop has already gone through at index is equal to 2. So it's going to skip right over to this one right here, which means this blue box never gets checked. So the way that we deal with that is we actually go through backwards. So we would start at I is equal to 4, check this one, yes, no, check this one, I is equal to 3, yes, which means we can remove it. These text boxes in this OneNote is very annoying. Gets removed. This gets sort of shifted down, but it doesn't matter. We've already checked I is equal to 3, and then we check I is equal to 2. And that's also true, which means we're going to remove that one. This one gets shifted down. We've already checked I is equal to 2, so it's going to check I is equal to 1, and then I is equal to 0. So we're going to traverse this array in the opposite direction than what we've been doing. So in order to do that, we're going to start with aliens.length -1. And why is it -1? Because we start our indexes at 0. which means this length of the array is 5, but our very last index is 4. So we want to start with length minus 1. So aliens length minus 1, and then we're going to go until I is less than 0, or that's when we want to stop, and then we're going to decrease I each time instead of increase it. How did I break my splicing? What did I do? I is equal to aliens length. Oh, whoops. This this needs to run when I is greater than or equal to. Here we go. Okay. Yeah, so good thing to keep in mind. This is our starting index. This is the condition in which this for loop will run. So this is going to run while I is greater than or equal to 0. So it's going to stop if it ever attempts to access something that's negative, and it's going to decrease by 1 each time. So that works fine. And then we're going to do the same exact thing but this time for bullets. Bullets? Bullets, yeah, with an S. Bullets.length, all of that is going to be the exact same. Bullets at I.hit is greater than 0. Yes. Bullet registered. I misspelled damage. Bullet registered hit. We need to do bullet splice. Removes one element. Okay. So it may not seem super necessary to remove the bullet, but if you wanted to do, say, multiple rows, which is what it is in the sort of original versions, you have multiple rows of aliens coming at you at the same time. So if you hit 1, you don't want to then be able to take out an entire row, or entire column, I'm sorry, with one bullet. So it's important to remove it for that reason if you ever want to expand this game. Okay. And I mean, this is a functioning, if rudimentary, version of Space Invaders. You can, of course, add the multiple layers of aliens. You can add the sort of, you can add a certain amount of damage that you can take as the player character. So if the player character, you can, if the aliens can shoot back at you maybe, or if they get to the bottom, you lose a life and you start over, or if they get to the bottom, then you just have an end screen or something. Like that's all stuff. It's just more conditional statements. It's going to be if aliens position Y ever hits the bottom, then draw this screen that says you lose, end game, all sorts of functionality that you can add, but you should have the basic tools that you would need to expand it as much as you'd like. And then adding rows of aliens, you're going to do all of the same exact stuff just for multiple rows. So that's the the nice thing about using objects is that if I want to create a new row, I'm going to call this aliens 2. Aliens 2, and then I'm going to set it to Y plus let's do 50. I don't know. And then where do I draw? Right here. So, oof. Bouncing does not seem to be working very well, but, you know, you can figure that stuff out. It's actually not that difficult to understand why that's happening. So, yeah, you can add as many rows as you'd like. You can either do that by just sort of copying everything that you did for Aliens 1 and then just doing it for row 2, row 3, however you'd like. You can also look into doing multidimensional arrays. Which I'm not going to go into, but would be helpful. You're essentially creating, instead of just an array, which would be one line of data, it's going to be a matrix of data. Where's the... Yeah, so it has, instead of like the one index variable, it's going to have two, because it's going to have kind of a column and a row, or there's, you know, just doing the nested for loops. We did something similar with our bullets and our arrays, with our bullets and our aliens, sorry. But for this one, it would be just for aliens. So for every row of aliens, do this. For every column of aliens, do this. You can feel free to look more into that. But, you know, you have I'm going to undo everything that I did. A functioning version of very simple Space Invaders. You can add scoring, you can add lives, you can add damage, whatever you'd like. So for an example, I created multiple rows that each have a level of damage that you have to have in order to defeat it, along with color changing, that kind of thing. Like I said, end screens, you can add end screens. All sorts of things to think about, and multiple ways to accomplish each of those things. So, you know, feel free, have fun, and I look forward to seeing y'all's projects. If you ever want to send them my way, I can provide feedback, provide advice. If you got stuck with something, just let me know. And that's it. Thank you for joining me for Creating with Code. I hope you got something out of it. I hope you enjoyed yourself, and I hope you made a game that you enjoy playing or something. So thank you very much. And this has been Stephanie Connolly with Creating with Code. Bye-bye.